What is that?
Yeah, trivia night. Nobody asked. But
So that's a citation from the book of Parables.
The link.
Impressive. His book is like God's.
Yes.
Life in life.
I think I'll.
I don't know why that's
Very cool. Good.
He liked
Leave our stuff here.
around the ark, see the circle thing, that I'm told
No, you have
that sort of represents a pomegranate. Right there. Pomegranate is
How many?
That's
I'm gonna keep that, that's gonna be my stop now.
Okay.
There's
So next time you crack one open, you're
There's
gonna
a
talk
dove
about it.
representing peace there.
There it is.
Upper left, you can see its eye and its wings. Yeah. The dove. The dove right there. Here, yeah, that's really interesting. You mentioned that. I don't know what that means, but they didn't, they just repainted the mullions, those are the things, but they didn't paint the concrete, gravity, stuff around the same line. Over here on this side, it's a tree trunk that's actually cut. And there's a branch, and then it continues up.
That's
See that there?
I just set up.
The second vertical set of panels from the right. Starting, I guess, with the second panel up this tree trunk that's cut, and then it attached to something else, and then it continues growing straight. So that's the symbol, I think, of the Holocaust. The founding rabbi, or the rabbi who was the rabbi of the congregation, was a Holocaust survivor. He actually was a rabbi in Berlin. He was a rabbi in Berlin at the time of Kristallnacht. His synagogue was destroyed. And he was taken to a concentration camp for some time. He was released, then he left Germany and came to Chicago. And eventually came here. So that's part of, again, thinking about Jewish heritage. We were often certain time, but we grow in this show. Not, based upon not necessarily all of us are the originals.
How many years?
I was informed with.
So this carpet is relatively new, it's about a year old. We had pews up until like a year and a half ago. Because of COVID, because of space, we were using other places to see. That's a very change. We go live stream.
Can't tell people where to sit, right?
Yeah, you can, they just won't listen to you.
Oh, there you have it. And that's why we live in the Jewish community, where there are 2 Jews and 3 opinions.
That's very limited, I like.
It's a small community.
Actually, 2 Jews could agree on 1. Almost a third Jew should get the shul.
Oh, that's true.
What'd you say, Marianne?
Almost a third Jew should get the shul.
The cantor is on vacation. So, this is the next time I do, here I am solo again. So,
We worked on Facebook with you last week. YouTube.
uh-huh. How are you feeling, Vivian?
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
I can do it just fine.
Thank God.
It's never nice to be, well, one of them is the neighbor. I really wasn't worth cussing you. I just do all this for free.
And then he was pretty tough. But then he was pretty tough.
Oh, yes? Oh. I like this. I said, I probably would not want to see it when he's not.
You don't want to
I'm getting phone all the time.
Okay.
You think so?
But any surgery is, surgery.
Eastside Hospital is just such a nice place to have.
It's such a big
Was that day that I
campus.
did so many.
No?
Getting bigger, you should see what they're doing.
They're building a rehab hospital right
So
next door.
fortunate, across the street.
Well, goodness knows you people need it, right?
I didn't have to go back. I didn't vote
But
for
it's
anybody.
well organized as far as
I was
this
tempted,
area
but
is
I ended
concerned.
up not,
And,
so I didn't.
and they've changed things. Usually the doc will come out and talk to you. Now the doc can talk to you. Well, it saves them coming out in a sterile area.
Right, true.
And like I said, you buy them walking short.
Wow.
And I suspect if they were seriously wrong, they would be out.
I guess that's true. Yeah. You just never know how those things are gonna develop, right? Time of COVID and the time of.
We did try to lie. Sue said it was. Yeah. In fact, she didn't know. I just noticed your mother's name.
Which are here.
Hi, Chuck.
Me too. That's a nice donation. Maybe someone thought you were home. That's not such a bad thing. Wow. I hope they can find the relief for the money.
Just trying to say hi. You don't know who.
I hope that you find relief
Yeah, I do.
from the busyness of work.
They've been there week after week after week after week.
Do they?
Nice job. Summer, we are ready.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope that people feel comfortable in this place We have such beautiful weather here, and we're so glad to have you here. Just for technical's sake, I want to first welcome those here in our sanctuary. I want to welcome those who are joining us online tonight and remind you of a few things. For those who are online, you can check the video description and you will see that there are 3 links, or maybe there might be 4 links. One link is to our prayer book, and that's a flip book version of our prayer book. Please be sure to follow the numbers that are in the brackets. There's also a link to our program tonight, and there's one piece of liturgy, one prayer that is in our program we'll be referring to when we get there. And the other links are there for you to help people who are in need, both in the Chicago area in Highland Park and in Ukraine. And for those of you who are here in our sanctuary, we wish to welcome you as well. You all have a program, I hope, and there's, again, a little insert. Actually, there are, oh my goodness, and there is a, here in the sanctuary, there is, and I hope, I don't know whether we have that link online, actually. It's a text that we'll be looking at later on. We'll be talking about it. You may not need exactly that whole text. But we are here to relax and begin Shabbat. So I'd like to invite people to turn to page 128 in our prayer book, and we begin our service with Hachama Merosh, page 128. As the sun is setting, and we can see it setting if you look outside, we are reminded that indeed the Shabbat is coming, at the bottom of 128. Hachama Merosh Ha'ilanot Nistalaka Bo'u v'neitzei likrat Shabbat ha'malaka Hinei hi yoredet hakdosha berucha Ve'ima malachim tzva shalom u'menucha Boi boi ha'malka Boi boi ha'kala Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom. The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our Queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace. I'd like to invite you to turn to page 126. We offer this prayer together as a congregation. Please join me. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and bring that vision to life. Tonight, as we worship together, I hope that we have joy in our hearts and we have optimism, even though we gather to worship at an interesting time in the history of our people, meaning that the summertime is a time of reflection. We are getting ready, after all, for the High Holy Days, which are only 8 or 9 weeks ahead of us. But these weeks prior to the High Holy Days, we are to remember the acts of destruction that affected our people Now, we are recovered as a people. We are growing as a people, so the demographers tell us. But still in all, in a way, we empathize with what our ancestors experienced. We empathize with the pain and the anguish and the exile that they experienced. And we also empathize, and we'll talk about this later on, we also empathize with all of the expectation and the comfort that they eventually received when their exiles were over and when they were able to conclude and complete and create the land of Israel, where now we are so fortunate to have people living and a Jewish community thriving. It is my pleasure to invite Reagan Shapiro and Meredith Peer to our bima, who will light Shabbat candles for us and offer a meditation. So I want to invite you all forward and come and join us there on the bima. And I'm hoping that that microphone is on, because I think we may not have tested it properly, but let's see. Oh, great. Okay. Here is this for you.
Who can look directly into the light? We can behold only a small portion, a fragment of the light. And when that one light is fragmented, the colors of the rainbow result. So let us give thanks for all the colors that are ours. All of them are part of the one light we are bathed in, the one light that is our fountain of our life.
Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the secret fastness of the heart. Blessed are the hearts with strength to stop their beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame.
And we invite you to turn to page 120 for the bracha, for thanking God for the light of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. On Erev Shabbat, really on any evening, we thank God for four major gifts given to us. We thank God for this world of creation all around us. We thank God for the gift of Torah that really enlivens our lives. We thank God for the deliverance, first of Egypt long ago, and we today are supposed to imitate that by helping other people achieve their own freedoms. And we thank God for the protection that we each think we feel at night when we retire and the sun goes away. Sometimes we don't always feel as safe as we might, but in a community we offer those thanks. And when we observe the Shabbat, we welcome that extra special gift, which is the gift of the Spirit, the gift of Shabbat soul. So this says, let us go and thank God through song and through shouting and through joy. We begin Kabbalat Shabbat on page 130 with L'chu Niranana. Page 130, we thank God through all of the music and all of the joy that we bring to one another. L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana l'Adonai. L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Nekadma Fana Bitoda. Naria, Naria, Litzur Yishenu Izmirot Naria Lo. L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana, L'chu Niranana l'Adonai. lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. On page 133, we continue together at the bottom of the page. Please join me. A psalm. Sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm has won God victory. Adonai has manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness toward the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. Page 139, we continue with Lecha Dodi, yet another song, another opportunity for us to practice and raise our voices to God. Let us welcome Shabbat. Welcome to the Shabbat bride. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, ekabela. Verse 1. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shem ultiferet ve'letila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, Ekabela. Verse 2. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'neilcha, kihi mekor, haberacha, merosh mikedem, mesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava, techila, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela. Number 5. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech, umi ori, uri, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela. We face the doors. Boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam besimcha, uvtzola, toch emunei, am segula, boi chala, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela. And finally, on page 140, Tov lehodot, just reminding ourselves that it is good to thank God for all of the things that we are presented in this world. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer l'shimcha elyon. Lehagid baboker, baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatcha baleilot, baleilot. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ul ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. עלי עשור ועלי נבל, היה להיגיון בכינור, בכינור. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון. I'd like to invite you to turn to page 146 and 147. They face one another, so we're going to be reading from both of these pages. Ma'ariv. The word ma'ariv doesn't mean evening. The word ma'ariv means mixing together. And in the view of our ancestors, God mixed together the light of day and the dark of night, and we have this period of time that we call dusk, that we call sundown, that gives us this assurance that the world is rotating on its axis, and the world is rotating around the sun properly, and all the stars might align. But it also tells us of some fear and some trepidation as we mix in the dark with the light, and the dark then champions over the light eventually. We're always uncertain about what happens at night. And yet we are together again, as I said before, in a community of people, because that allows us all to gain strength from one another to face the dangers or the challenges of this night and all the challenges that we face in the world. I'd like to invite us to read together at the middle of page 147, and then after that we'll rise for Baruch Hu. Please join me at the middle of 147. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. We'd like to invite you to rise for Baruch Hu on 146. Lai 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 lai, ya 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 lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. On page 149 at the middle, we continue together. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it, we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. We praise you, O God, who mixes in the evening together. On page 150, we continue at the top with Ahavat Olam. Please join one another. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Al Kain Adonai Eloheinu b'shokteinu, Umeinu nasiach bechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, U'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, Ki hem chayenu, Ve'orech yameinu, Uvahem nehege yomam v'layla, Nehege yomam v'layla, Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, Mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Let's do that again. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Adonai, Adonai Echad. Adonai, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We continue together at the top of 154 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shiftecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot ein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai V'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etechem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. We'll continue together on page 157. At the middle, we offer this reading responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered. At Sinai, we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let's continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. On page 158, let's join one another with Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Nohora Tehilot, Osei Peleh, Nohora Tehilot, Osei Peleh. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeh. Eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch leolam ha'ed. Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Yai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. This evening we offer Hashkivenu from the supplement that is found inside your program. We offer these familiar words and music from Steve Brodsky and Joshi Zweiback and Larry Jonas. Please join one another. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 On page 162, we offer Vishamru, these words from the book of Exodus, encouraging us, telling us to keep Shabbat for all our generations. 162. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. The prayers that we offer anytime are special, primarily because they come from inside. They come from a place where we may not even recognize, and yet we know that when we offer sincerity, when we offer those words that mean the most to us, those are the words that affect us. Perhaps they affect God, and perhaps they affect the world around us. So as we offer the tefillah tonight, we also think about what are those strengths and skills that we'd like to maintain and develop. Perhaps what are those things that we might want to jettison from our lives. Again, this is all in preparation for the High Holy Days, which may seem far away, but the task of self-inspection or introspection is a constant task, and so we always are remembering what that means, to think about the self and how we can improve the self. The tefillah begins on page 164. I invite the community to rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, let my mouth may declare your praise. 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei v'neihem, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. Page 168. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. Page 170. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. I'd like to invite you to turn in the prayer book to a completely different place, to page 288, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 288. And although this prayer in the prayer book is marked for morning worship, I still think it might be helpful to us whenever we gather with one another. I invite you to read along with me. May my life be one link in a chain of goodness. As I say the prayers of my ancestors, help me to recall their devotion and faithfulness, their joy and suffering, which are in every word. Holiness is my heritage. May I be worthy of it. May our tradition live in me and pass from me to generations I shall never know, enriched by the truth that I have found and the good deeds I have done. So may I fulfill my task on earth and receive my blessing. And when the service ends and the prayers have ceased, help me to bring their spirit into the world in which I live. May I love God above all and my neighbor as myself, and be a living witness to the truth that never changes. If you'd like now to turn back in the prayer book to about page 172, 173, we continue with the tefillah silently, and eventually when the tefillah is done, we'll meet you on page 180. We continue now with quiet prayer. והיו לרצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי, אדוני צורי, וגואלי. Shabbat Shalom. So tonight I want to just talk for a minute about this season of the year and the concept of empathy. And this year, or I should say at this time of year, in these 3 weeks that we're right now in the middle of between, say, the 17th of Tammuz, just to sort of throw out a random date, and the 9th of Av, there are 3 weeks during this time. The 9th of Av, of course, is the holiday on which we observe and we commemorate the destructions of our ancestors, the destruction of the first temple and the second temple, and we remember the pogroms of Khmelnytsky, we remember the Shoah, we remember the Inquisition, we remember so many difficult times in our people's history. And in these 3 weeks that precede that day of deepest mourning, Judaism encourages us to become inward a little bit, to become pensive, to think about what it meant for our ancestors to face great trials and tribulations and to face the destructions that they did. And so I want to talk about this period right now. We are not such like our ancestors. That's not to say we don't live in dangerous times. We don't live in perilous times. You open up the newspaper, you open up a news magazine, you turn on your media, you look at your screens, and you see some of the dangers still that the Jewish community faces. And we think back, are what we experiencing today similar in nature to what our ancestors may have experienced with exile and destruction and danger and peril in all the lands of their dispersion? And it's interesting that our liturgical calendar encourages this. And for those of you who are familiar with it, you know that the haftarot that we say at this time of year mirror this kind of thing. And you each have a handout about that. Now, to explain, for those maybe who may be unfamiliar, the haftarot, or in singular, the haftarah are those scriptural portions in our Reformed tradition. They come from a lot of different places, but traditionally they come from the books of the prophets. For this time of year, there are special haftarot that accompany each week's scriptural portion. In other words, tomorrow, if we're reading the parasha of Mas'eh, which we are, there really isn't a connection, like there normally is, between the Torah portion for tomorrow and its accompanying scriptural section from the prophets. There usually is a connection. At this time of year, there is not. And I wanted to excerpt for you sections from 3 of the haftarot that we have, beginning last week, continuing tomorrow, and going through next week. And just to be a little bit more, just to provide a little more background, in each haftarah, I think that when you read them, that you will find one theme about empathy and empathizing with what our ancestors went through that you may not find in anywhere else in the Torah or Bible, but because we are told specifically at this time of year to think about these matters, it really forces us to. It helps us confront these matters. So again, just to review, the prophets from whom we are reading tonight, we are reading from little excerpts from Jeremiah and Isaiah. These prophets were writing at times of great destruction. The first temple had been destroyed. And sometimes the writer writes in a voice that's before the destruction, and sometimes the writer writes in a voice that is post-destruction. But the other thing to keep in mind, and this is the connection with the High Holy Days, is that the rabbis of our tradition who sort of outlined that we read the Bible in this way, they said, look, the reason for the destructions weren't the fact that the nation of Assyria or the nation of Babylon came and schmeiced the Jews and forced them into exile. It was our fault. We did it ourselves. It's real old-fashioned Jewish guilt. And I don't mean to say that to sound glib, but I think that that's what it was. The destruction of the first temple was done, according to the rabbis primarily, because we prayed very well, and we talked about the sacrifices, and we even made the sacrifices. But it didn't affect our everyday behavior. It didn't affect our everyday commerce. We were still rotten to one another. And we prayed in the temple, and we offered our sacrifices, and that did no good. Bless you. The second temple's destruction, maybe you know, the second temple was destroyed not because Rome hated us. The second temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred between the factions of Jews in those days. The Jewish groups did not get along with one another in those days. Sound familiar? Right? And all the other destructions, there is an element of our own being at fault. Now, I'm not saying that that's accurate, but I'm saying that this is the impression that the rabbis of our tradition wanted us to sort of understand. So just briefly, let's take a moment to explore each of these different haftarot. The haftarah from last week's portion of Matot, right? If you have your handout, and for those online, I don't think I have a link for you online. I apologize for not making sure we do. But if this is the section of the book of Jeremiah, beginning at chapter 1, verse 1. And this is particularly the beginning of verse 4 of chapter 1. The word of the Eternal came to me. This is the call of Jeremiah. Before I created you in the womb, God said, I selected you. Before you were born, I consecrated you. I placed you as prophet to all the nations. And he goes on in verse 10 to say, look, I have appointed you this day over nations and their sovereigns to uproot and pull down, to destroy and overthrow, and to build and to plant. That's a tough mission, because we are told that you have to get rid of some things before you can create from new. Now, does that refer to the land of Israel needing to be uprooted and destroyed and then built anew? I don't know. This is for you to think about. Let me go on to the second one. I'm not going to read the whole selection here, but this is really something that I wanted to share with you, because Jeremiah, in this week's parashah, in this week's haftarah, really gets very angry. And he says, look, the Eternal said this, what's wrong with your ancestors? Didn't they find in me anything? What did they find in me that caused them to abandon me and go after delusion? Had they never asked themselves, where is this eternal God who brought us up from the land of Egypt, who led us through the wilderness, this land of deserts and pits, a land of drought and darkness, a land no person had traversed, and I brought you to this country of orchards and farmland. So Jeremiah is saying in God's voice, what, there's no gratitude here? Don't they understand what I gave them, says God? And they trash it, and they're destroying it. That's quite, look at that, accusatory language. And the third haftarah with next week's haftarah comes from Isaiah. And here, God is really angry at Israel, right? Let's take a look at the middle of this paragraph, just above the middle, right? Don't bring me any more oblation. Don't bring me any more oblations, I think it should be. It is futile. Incense is offensive to me. I cannot abide the way you celebrate new moons and Sabbaths, and the proclaiming of solemnities and assemblings that are accompanied by iniquity. In other words, you do all these things, but you don't mean it. Your new moons and your fixed seasons fill me with loathing. They are a burden to me, and I cannot endure them. When you lift up your hands, I'm going to turn my eyes away from you. And though you pray, I am not going to listen. Your hands are stained with blood. I'm going to stop there. And I'm just interested if you all have any reactions to these kinds of anger. Again, at this time of year, we are supposed to sort of feel what the Israelites felt. So the rabbis tell us. I wonder if that's possible. Can we possibly feel this anger and this anguish? And if we were to feel these things, how are we supposed to then deal with that? So this is a few moments of your reactions to some of these words, if you have any, and if you have a subject that you'd like to bring to the floor that touches upon how we are supposed to empathize with our ancestors and then move onwards from there toward a time of reconciliation, I'd be interested in your thoughts. So I'm going to turn the mic on, and if you have what to say, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to join in a little dialogue here. Wait.
Can you give us the context of when Jeremiah, the time at which Jeremiah?
So we're asking about the time frame, right, of when Jeremiah was writing. So Jeremiah primarily was writing at the time about the year 625, 622, before the Common Era, at the time of King Josiah, actually. So, by the way, King Josiah was one of the kings of Israel who, it was thought, either wrote or probably more likely had commissioned the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy is from this period of time as well. The book of Deuteronomy, of course, is a restatement of Jewish law, and it was done, we believe, about Josiah. Josiah saw the deterioration of the nation, and Josiah thought, we've forgotten all of those rules. We forgot the Ten Commandments. We disregard all those things. So how are we supposed to turn the nation around? The northern half of the nation is gone. Assyria came and got them 100 years ago. Babylon is waiting. Babylon is next. They're going to take us away if we're not careful. And so the Josiah reign created the book of Deuteronomy, and Jeremiah then is now also prophesying about the dangers in not following the intention and only sticking with the strict interpretation and the strict practice of the law.
Yeah, if the question is, how would I feel or how are they feeling in those times? I would be terrified. I mean, I can't think of anything stronger, any stronger words that could be said to tell these people, hey, turn around and look what's happening.
These are very strong words, and it likely made them it could have made them frightened. That was certainly the intention of the prophet. Whether it made them frightened enough to change their behavior, we're not exactly sure. But what do we see? We, with this, long-range view, we see the prophet who says these very angry words, both prophets, Jeremiah and Isaiah, and we see the destruction that came nonetheless. So in a way, we are told our ancestors didn't get it right? Our ancestors may have tried their best to respond to the prophecies and to try to respond to the anger of the prophet, but we didn't do it right. It didn't work. And what might that say about the task that we have ahead? Any other comments? Yeah, please.
I'm just curious about the timing of this vis-a-vis the High Holy Days. So what it was for our ancestors at this point is the same point that, similar to what we're doing now, turning inward and thinking about how we're going to be better next year and what have been our failures and what we need to improve for ourselves and for the world. So I find the timing very appropriate, I guess.
Thank you. And the thing about the timing is that we have right now these 3 weeks of destruction, they're called. the 3 weeks of really heavy mourning and heavy anguish, comes Tisha B'Av, which is, it's on Saturday, August 6th, but because it falls on Shabbat, we observe it the next day on the Sunday the 7th. Beginning on that day, we have 7 weeks of consolation. So we have 7 weeks where the prophets and the Haftarot, these scriptural portions from the book of Isaiah, bless you, the next 7 weeks are all from Isaiah. And they're all from the second part of the book of Isaiah, which is written really at the end of exile, at the end of the Babylonian exile. And they all are words of comfort. Because I think after these 3 heavy weeks, right, the rabbi said, now we have to read nice things. We can't keep reading about this destruction. We don't want to keep haranguing you with the wicked and evil behavior of your ancestors. Now we need 7 weeks, or in this case, I think we'll have up to 8 weeks, really, of comfort and ease and hopeful expectation. That's the intention of those next 7 weeks that follow, or 7 Shabbatot that follow Tisha B'Av. I see a question. I'm not sure. Do you have a question?
Very perceptive. The sentence, I raised children and brought them up, and they have rebelled against me. What triggers that response?
So the question deals with that. That was in Jeremiah. Show me the section. Yeah, the Jeremiah. So, right, in the second line of the Jeremiah passage, I have raised children, brought them up, they have rebelled against me. So in the Torah, in the Bible overall, one of God's personas is that of a parent. And God says, I nurtured you. I suckled you. I weaned you. I brought you up. You were a rebellious teenager, and I corralled you, and I brought you, and I molded you. I took you through 40 years of wandering in the desert, and look what you do for me. Nothing. You build a golden calf. You don't follow the faith that I'm trying to give you to say you could conquer the land, so I caused you to walk in the desert for 40 years. That was a punishment. It wasn't just something that they did. And again, in relationship to the historical period we're talking about, you all very nicely sacrificed animals, but you couldn't care less about your neighbor. You did all the right rituals, but it wasn't in your heart. It was only in your hands that, as you see now in that passage, are stained with blood. And so that's what God is saying, that they rebelled. And the language is so strong and so fierce. It's difficult to read, and we are asked to read those words on the Sabbath just before Tisha B'Av, because that's the Sabbath where we're supposed to feel the most anguish as we look toward that holy day when we observe this holiday. And Tisha B'Av, in fact, is a fast day. You probably know, 25-hour fast, 24-hour fast, and they call it a black fast. It's mourning. Like Yom Kippur, that 24 or 25-hour fast, that's white. The color of Yom Kippur is white, purity. The color of Tisha B'Av is black, sackcloth and ashes. We read the book of Lamentations, a book of heavy mourning that talks specifically about the destruction of the temple in 586, before the Common Era. And those are the punishments for the rebellion that's what that refers to. Marnie.
Is the rebellion a kind of a cry against lip service? In other words, people talk a good talk, but they don't do what they say they're going to do.
I think that's one way of looking at it, certainly. We have people who, are supposed to be God-fearing, but it seems that they know how to sacrifice animals very nicely, but they don't help their neighbor. They don't reach out to the poor. They don't understand that the land needs to be protected, just as people need to be protected. Torah says in a number of places, the land is mine, says God, and you all are just like here temporarily. But they treated the land like it was theirs, and they didn't care about what God gave to, help the land.
I have only 2 words, climate change.
And Jeremiah would say, or the rabbis might say, and who's causing climate change, right? We're doing it to ourselves. That's my opinion. And so maybe that's just repeating itself, right? If we are thinking about relating any of this to today, we have the power to despoil our world, and we have the power to improve it. It just takes our will to make it happen. Anyway, I want to commend all these haftarot to you, not because they're enjoyable necessarily, but because they teach us important lessons about history and may draw parallels to today. I'd like to invite you to turn to page 371 in the prayer book. Because now we offer prayers of healing and wholeness for those people who are ill on this night, those people who might be in the hospital, God willing, they are recovering from illness or surgery. We think about people whom we know and those whom we don't know. These are people who need our prayers. Again, we don't know how God operates in the realm of healing, but we do know that when someone knows that we're praying on their behalf, that's a connection that we make. That gives them concern. That shows them that our concern is strong. That shows them that we are thinking about them, even though they are in the middle of healing. We have almost 100 people on our Temple Beth El healing list at this time. So we're thinking of them in particular because members and others have asked us to think of them. But also there may be friends and relatives of people in this room who need healing as well. And if you feel comfortable, if you'd like to, I'm going to invite you in a moment to share with our community the names of people that you know about. Now, you all don't have microphones, so that's not going to go onto the internet necessarily. But you are in a community that cares about you. You are in a community that's connected. And so we ask if you have anyone whose name you'd like to add to our list, they will be in our hearts at this time. Are there others we are thinking about tonight? Dear God, aloud and in our hearts, we name those facing illness and pain, and we join our prayers to the prayers of all who love them. On page 371, where it's sort of indented, we continue. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Our service continues on page 123, and I want to invite again Reagan Shapiro and Meredith Peer to join me up here in the center, down there in the center, I should say. For those of you who may not know, in about a week, or really, a week from tomorrow, Meredith will come to our bima, and she, along with her family, will celebrate her becoming a bat mitzvah. So we have our custom of the week before a bat mitzvah, the week before our b'nai mitzvah, we invite the families to join us and lead us in these happy prayers. So this is the grape juice for tonight, the fruit of the vine. On page 123, Ted is going to offer us the beginning note here, so we'll start with him, and then we'll begin to sing. So please join us with Kiddush, to be led by Meredith and Reagan. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta yotanu hidashta mikohamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uveratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat l'chaim. Want to wish your family an early Mazel Tov, and we're so grateful that you are with us here tonight. Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you. Have a beautiful week ahead, and Mazel Tov. We'll talk about the bat mitzvah in just a few moments. We'll repeat the invitation that our community will invite everyone to be here. Anyway, we'd like to now invite you as a community, both here in the sanctuary and online, to welcome you to turn to page 586. We will continue with Aleinu. Page 586, we invite everyone to rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו השמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Please be seated. We continue as a community reading together at the top of page 591. 591 at the top. Please join me. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of the righteous always be a blessing. I'm offering a meditation that you find on page 592. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. At this moment in our worship, we remember those who've gone from this world. Our own loved ones, those whose yahrzeits occur at this time, those who died in the last 30 days, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. I'm going to offer names from our Kaddish list this week, and if you are here tonight in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, I'd like to invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited, and then you'll be joined by the whole community when we recite the mourner's Kaddish. These are those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. Our community's recent losses, we remember Dr. Joel Alexander Peterson, husband of Carlene Peterson, brother of Paul Peterson, father of Kyle Peterson, Trent Peterson, and Corey Peterson. We remember Patrick Hugh Passini, father of Mona Statz. And we remember Marion Meyer, mother of Marla Frank. And these are the Yahrzeiten that we remember at this time. In continuing dedication to their memories, we remember Hinda Askenazi, Ben H. Berman, Tony Berdeen, Faye Edith Kohlberg, Flora Gerhardt, Sally Greenbaum, Alex Heitowitz, Jack Kahn, Bob Casper, Irene B. Kinsler, Joel Kupferberg, Sander Kushner, Lyle Lanphier, Harry Loffman, Helen LaBelle, Eva Lesser, Harriet K. Lasan, Edna Uskin, Philip N. Parks, Ethel Potter, Lori R. Sachs, Beverly Sklansky, Solomon, Rose Tarkow, Meyer Wynn. There may be other members of this worship community tonight who are remembering loved ones, and if you'd like to add your loved one's name to this list of memory, we invite you to do so. Other people we should be remembering. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts, in the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. Testifying to the faith that binds the generations of humanity together. I now invite everyone to turn to page 598, and we rise for all of us to say and offer the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Page 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma, v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. May God send peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Our service will conclude in just a few moments, and when it does, we are invited to share an Oneg Shabbat in the community court. We have some Oneg Shabbat that you can have here to stay, or we have Oneg to go. We have cookies again from Just Bakery, which is a bakery that helps people rehabilitate after time in prison and get back into the real world. We are grateful to the TBE, Temple Beth El Sisterhood, who provided tonight's Oneg. Sisterhood, thank you very much, as always. We'd like to thank Reagan Shapiro and Meredith Peer for joining us tonight in the last week before Meredith, you are coming to the Bima as a bat mitzvah. We thank you. We invite people to join us here on that day. It's a week from tomorrow on Saturday, August 6th at 10:30 in the morning. If you'd like to join us, please come and offer Meredith and as well as Meredith, your family, to celebrate with you. And thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to thank Ted Reinke, our accompanist tonight. Ted, thank you very much for offering such beautiful music, keeping me mostly on pitch and mostly in time with the music. So thank you. I'm so happy that the cantor will be returning next week for that very reason, because he's more on pitch and more in time than I am. So, and next week, by the way, worship will be at 6 p.m., and we'll gather at 5:30 for some nosh. We'll be worshiping out here on the terrace, weather permitting. So please join us for a brief Ma'ariv service, after which you can go and have dinner and enjoy the Shabbat that will be for us next Friday and Saturday, God willing. Tomorrow morning, though, at 9 o'clock, there will be Torah study, now hybrid, led by Steve Olson, and he'll be talking about the parashah of Mas'eh, which is this week's Torah portion in our community. And again, next Saturday, we have pre-Shabbat Nosh outdoors, or pre-Neg, if you will, on the Temple Beth El Terrace at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Next Friday evening will be our worship outdoors or on YouTube. Please join us in either place. Some people do join us in both places. I'm not sure how that happens, but they do. And a week from tomorrow on Saturday, we will have Torah study at 9 o'clock in the morning, led by Steve Craig, discussing the portion of Deuteronomy, the first part of the book of Deuteronomy, which is called Devarim. And next Saturday morning on the 6th, something's happening at 10:30. I think that's going to be, again, Meredith's joining us as a bat mitzvah. There's all kinds of things happening in the coming weeks to touch upon the high holy days. On Sunday, August 7th at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, that's redundant, sorry. On Sunday, August 7th at 3 p.m., there will be a Tisha B'Av observance here in the temple. You can read about that online. Please join us. It is a fast day, and for those of you who do participate in the fast, so we won't be serving any food. There won't be any oneg at that particular worship service. But nonetheless, it will begin the season of real deep thinking about how we become better people and how we can make this world better in the future. So join us again a week from Sunday on the 7th at 3 p.m. here in the temple. Please check out our website, tbemadison.org, for more details and for registration on all the events that are coming up for the pre-High Holy Day time, as well as the holidays. They're in our sites, and so we are getting ready for that. Does anyone have any announcements that they would like to make tonight? It's always a dangerous question to have an open mic question like that. But seeing no hands, we'll just conclude. I do want to say something, though. For those of you who may not know, we had a wonderful Shabbat dinner here prior, and I want to thank Betsy Abramson and Marsha Mansfield, who are our organizers tonight. Betsy is here tonight. This was a special dinner that honored the 11 interns, which were able to be funded through the Jewish Federation of Madison. And I want to thank Alan Klugman as well, who is with us here tonight too, for helping us fund this project. This is a project sponsored by the Jewish community. And this we were able to celebrate here tonight. 11 young people, high school and college students, were able to be at organizations owned by or run by members of this Jewish community. And we were here tonight to celebrate the ending of their internships, to welcome them, and we had 6 of them, 7 of them? 7. Yes, they actually, it was, 6 were here. They came and the interns came here to be with us, to have Shabbat dinner with us. Some came with their families. Some brought some young cousins, their same age, which was amazing to see. Not just with their parents they came. We had a lovely dinner that was organized again by Betsy and Marcia, and we thank them for their extreme care for our community that really allowed us to celebrate together with the interns. And so thank you to the Jewish Federation and to Alan Klugman, who helped us sponsor these great interns this summer for the last 6 or 7 weeks. So thank you. And thank you to all those organizations connected to members of our synagogue who helped sponsor them. We have a few people here tonight. I don't want to say one because I don't want to leave anybody out, but there were 11 groups connected with our community that were able to host an intern. And Mike, we're grateful for you, and we're grateful for all those who were able to sponsor those people. So I hope, thanking some people and not others, but anyway, you know who you are. We thank you. Our service will conclude with Shalom Aleichem, because one of the things that we do when we welcome Shabbat, we say welcome to all the angels of Shabbat that have allowed us to celebrate on this day. So Shalom Aleichem in our prayer book can be found on page 142. And again, although this traditionally is part of Kabbalat Shabbat, I thought we would just end with this to have fun with this lovely setting of Shalom Aleichem. Again, when we end Shabbat, we go out into the world and we hope that our experience will be one of tikkun and joy. Our hope will be one of helping to correct the world and the joy that we get from doing so. So page 142, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Hasharet, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malchei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.